It's Brian Preston, the money guy.
Career and how you make your money.
So big so that it's what most of us spend the majority of our life doing, and in our work is the majority of our day doing. It's kind of the thing that we spend our time on.
We tell people, because we have a brand new employee that's starting tomorrow,
right.
which is kind of cool, but it's also, it's so scary to hire people.
Yeah.
It's because, Bo, you mentioned it. I mean, we talk about we're a daytime family because you do spend so many hours with the people you work with. So you might as well make sure your career is something you truly want to be doing, since so much of your time is going into it. And I don't think it's going to shock any of our listeners of the Money Guy Show is that one of the first steps I tell you is you got to know where the vision is. What is your ultimate vision for where you want to be? What is success? And I'm always surprised at how many people are kind of floating out there and not really knowing where they are. They're kind of that rudderless ship or going on a road trip without an ultimate destination planned. I don't think that works. So my first step that I tell everybody with your career plan is at least go ahead and start visualizing what is 1 year, what does 3 years, 5 years, and 10 years look like. We even, if you ever interview with us, you're going to be not shocked at all that one of the questions we will ask you is, what's your plan if you start working with us? What does 1 year look like? What does 5 years look like? What does 10 years look like? And I know people, you say 10 years. I mean, that's so far out there. How can I think about 10 years? It's to let us know, do you know what your why is? Do you know why you're even doing this? And do you even know what success is and what's going to bring you happiness? And I'm always surprised. It catches people.
Yeah.
You can sense that a lot of people sometimes have not got it all figured out.
And I think one of the things that's so interesting is the first kind of question you have to even ask yourself before you can think about that 1, that 5, or that 10 is, in what you're currently doing right now, is it a career, is it a path, is it a journey, or is it just a job, just a job? And there's nothing wrong if you're just in a job right now because that's where you have to be because of
We've
other
all had jobs.
circumstances.
Yeah.
But you need to understand how can you use that and not get stuck in that to figure out to put you on that path for that vision, for that 5, for that 10-year plan. So again, it's that self-assessment of if I'm not where I'm at right now, do I at least know where it is I want to be and why I want to be there?
So I tell people to look at it annually. And you might be asking yourself, well, why do this annually? And I'm going to be very self-reflective, is that I will tell you, when you start doing planning and you start setting goals for yourself, this incredible thing is going to happen. You actually start accomplishing these goals. And I want you to celebrate when you accomplish things. But one of the fears I have when people are celebrating, if you're celebrating and you celebrate, you kind of settle on the celebration, you don't ever move on to what the next thing is. You kind of get stuck there. And I'll tell you, I hired Bo in 2008.
That's right.
2007 was a celebration year because I think 2006 was the first year that I felt like that this company was not going out of business any time now. So I hit 2007, and I just didn't have growth that year. I mean, I think when we looked at the numbers, we realized, man, it was almost like I lost my focus.
You're just comfortable.
I got comfortable, and I wasn't. There was an opportunity cost to not thinking about the future, and that led me to the next point of, I think that you have to, after you get through your short celebration or good celebration, I want you to take the effort for it. I want you to start visualizing what the next thing is, because there is this, and it sounds silly, but there's a mystical power of the brain. And I don't know if you saw in the show notes, but I added this just a few hours ago, is that you and we had this exercise we did, and I guess I'll give you some of the credit for this, is because you made me much more deliberate with my goal seeking. Is that we finally, in about 2008 or 9, put together our ideal client list, or ideal client characteristics, I should say. And a lot of you guys, because I started the business in 2002, you're like, well, that's common sense. Why wouldn't you have your ideal client? And your ideal client is just somebody with money. No. An ideal client is somebody who has this certain saving behaviors. An ideal client is somebody who gets more fulfillment from saving than spending. There was a whole list of characteristics.
Education, cares about the plan.
So here's the point of what I'm telling you this, though, is that as soon as we created this ideal client, we looked at our client base in 2008, 9, and we realized that it was kind of like, I'll tell you, greater than 50% of my clients at that time did not meet
They
the
were
ideal
less
client.
than an ideal client. That's right.
So, and look, that's a small business. You take on sometimes things that are not ideal, so it's fine. But I can tell you just from doing this exercise, within 3 years, I kid you not, 3 years, this number had transitioned the firm completely. I mean, now, by 5 years, less than 10% of the client base is less than ideal.
That's right.
I mean, so I tell you, if you will just put your mind to it, even if you don't feel like you've created an action plan, just the thought of putting pen to paper of what you want to accomplish, the visualization of the goal,
Right.
you're going to be surprised at how success kind of moves towards that just because you've started the thought process.
Yeah, and I think it was because I don't know that we did anything differently. We didn't start saying anything different or behaving any differently, but somehow it steered us in that direction. You know, we talked about what we wanted the firm to look like, and somehow we ended up there. I think I don't know if I'd say it's mystically, but yeah, mystically it kind of got there.
Well, you definitely have to have a plan or a purpose, and that leads to the next thing is that a lot of the why, you've seen all the YouTube videos, you've seen the TED Talks on the whole why discussion, but that's the question I put on here next was, what are you put on this earth to do? And I know that seems like such an out in the ethos. I mean, that sounds like such a touchy-feely thing to say, what are you put on this earth to do? And I will tell you, I don't know that I would be the person I am if I had not I lost my father in my mid-20s. And that caused me to kind of relook at everything that was going on in my life, like how I was processing work, how I was processing my family, children, because I didn't have children at the time, and just the way I was spending my life. Was it the way I was supposed to be doing things? And I will tell you that it definitely changed my direction. And a lot of people, when I ask you what you're put on this earth to do, a lot of you immediately start thinking, well, fulfillment is money, and money is not fulfillment. I will tell you guys, we work with a lot of successful people and a lot of very wealthy people, but the wealth is kind of a side effect.
That's right.
If you start doing, I had a client. Last time I told this story, he was a prospect, so it was kind of cool. He came from the podcast, and he was talking about his kids because they were all successful adults.
Right.
And I said, what did you do with your kids to make them be successful or at least have that mindset of success? He said, I don't care what in the world you do, what your passion is to go into a vocation, just make sure you're in the top 5%. Because if you think about it, cosmetologist, the top 5% of cosmetologists are probably the ones when you hear about the jokes of the politicians getting the $400 haircuts.
Right.
That's the top 5% of the, and I guarantee you that cosmetologist is making a lot of money doing those $400 or $500 haircuts. So you can make money. Did I say the
Yeah,
name
I don't know
right?
if cosmetologists do haircuts. I don't know. That's more
Is
like
that right?
hairdressers, barbers. I think.
Yeah, that's what. Did I mess that up?
I think cosmetologists like makeup, maybe.
Okay.
I don't know about
You know
that.
what I'm saying. The barber. We'll go to the wealthy barber reference,
There we
you know,
go.
because a wealthy barber seems like stable ground with that. so we'll go with that. But you need to really, the point I'm getting to is you got to know what your purpose is. Why are you on earth? What's making you feel fulfilled? And I mean, one of the things, I love this quote, and whenever I can pull it out, I pull it out. The old Steve Jobs quote, I've used this before, but I don't think it gets old. I'm just going to read it to you. It says, quote, when you grow up, you tend to get told that the world is the way it is, and your life is just to live your life inside the world. Try not to bash into the walls too much. Try to have a nice family life, have fun, save a little money. That's a very limited life. Life can be much broader once you discover one simple fact. Everything around you that you call life was made up by people that were no smarter than you, and you can change it, you can influence it. Once you learn that, you'll never be the same again. I think about that quote. I get goosebumps just thinking about Steve Jobs. I mean, because the man, when you think about Pixar, you think about Apple the first time, the second time.
Right.
I mean, just his hands were all over so many visionary things. And it really is sobering if you start figuring out what you were put on this earth to do. You know, it's the whole Warren Buffett thing is that you'll never work a day in your life. I mean, and I think that's purposeful.
And I think, you know, a lot of high achieving people, and I would argue that if you're someone who's listening to a financial podcast, you're someone who's dialed into this, you're probably one of those high achieving people. We see this all the time where they think that checking the boxes are the things they're supposed to do. I need to go to college and get this degree, and then I need to get this job, and then I need to get married, and then I need to have kids. And I think what Steve was getting at is life has got to be about more than just checking boxes.
Yeah.
Or you'll check them all and you'll wonder what's next or what else is there. And I feel like we see this all the time with clients or friends who go through midlife issues, trying to find that. It's because they've checked a lot of the boxes without ever answering that
The
big
why.
why question.
It's
That's
true.
right.